Holman apologized and slid back into his seat. But before he had a chance to say anything further, one of the musicians, a slight man carrying a mandolin, dragged a chair over and plopped into it. He pointed at the journalist and smiled. "I know who you are," he said with a Scottish brogue. "I've seen your face over your byline." Then he turned to Alec. "But who are you?" "Let me guess," Alec said quietly. "You wrote Anushka's Lament." "The same. But what are you two palavering about that's got your friend here so excited? It is just a song, after all." "Not exactly." He held out a hand. "I'm Alex Warnock, by the way. You seem to already know Grandy." The musician shook hands heartily. "I'm Janice Hawthorne. They won't be needing me for this last number, so we can talk a bit. So tell me, what's your interest in the Russian immigrant?" "It's her granddaughter we're interested in, really. But Anushka's story explains a lot about what's happened to her and why." Hawthorne's eyes defocused for a moment. "Her granddaughter, you say? Who's that?" "Rachel Gwynn," Holman said, pausing between words. "The business reporter. Her first name is really Anushka. Warnock here claims she was named after your immigrant." "Damn," Hawthorne breathed. "No wonder she didn't want those rascals digging up dirt about her family. Her granny went through enough grief as it was, what with the fallout from the McCarthy hearings and all." "Hold on, wait a minute," Holman said. "McCarthy? What did Gwynn's granny have to do with the HUAC witch hunt?" "Nothing directly, but then a lot of people had their lives ruined by the idiots who thought they were being patriotic and emulated that moronic senator. I mean, come on. She'd been active in the socialist labor movement, after all. Couldn't help it, what with the upbringing and how much your parents hated Stalin. That was why they came to the States, you know." "Geez, Janice," Alex said, clearly impressed. "You must have spent quite some time researching that song. And you didn't know she had a famous granddaughter?" He shook his head. "Not a shred. But it leaves me to wonder. I mean, if she knew the truth about her namesake, why'd she back off when those corporate goons threatened to expose her family's bones?" "Well," Holman replied with a pained expression, "maybe she didn't. Maybe her folks kept it from her." "Maybe," Alex said in disbelief. "Maybe. Good grief. Have you been so focused on digging up the facts about what happened that you completely spaced on understanding Rachel Gwynn's motivation? I don't know, maybe I ought to find some other journalist to follow." "Hey," Hawthorne said, "lighten up. He gets it now, doesn't he?" "Sure, but what the hell good does it do Gwynn? What are we going to do? Call her up and say her mom's been lying to her about her grandma? That'd work real well. But if her mother kept all this from her when she was growing up," Holman said haltingly, "why couldn't Anushka tell her herself?" "Can't now," Hawthorne said, shrugging. "Dead since '91. Like it says in the lyric, she outlived the Soviet Union by a grapefruit slice. Woke up the following morning and died after breakfast. But there may be another way to break the happy news to her." "Oh, sure. I guess Anushka's Lament wasn't quite finished after all. Another few verses ought to do it. Maybe a parallel tale about a similar situation from not too long ago. I figure an awful lot of kids have been brought up believing the official tripe about what went down in New York on 9/11. So imagine, if you will, that our intrepid reporter kept the truth she knew about who was really responsible for that from her kid. Kid'd grow up with a whole different perspective on how trustworthy government folks are, and be willing to buy into whatever phony crap they tried selling to her generation. That kid'd be pretty well pissed at her folks when the truth finally came out, too." "I'm afraid you've lost me," Alex said after a pause. "How would a new version of your song convince Rachel Gwynn of the truth about her grandmother?" "Yeah," echoed Holman. "Simple," Hawthorne said, drawing his thumb across the mandolin strings. "First off, she doesn't have a daughter." Holman nodded vigorously. I knew that. And because of that," he continued, "she'd unconsciously put herself in the position of the child. Lyrics can whisper in your ears what your mind doesn't want you to know. Make something taboo, and people only want to know more about it. Trust me, she'll know this song is about her grand the moment she hears the final verse. And when she does, I wouldn't want to even be standing behind those people who went after her."